Welcome to Explorations. Today we're speaking with Seth Kahan, who's the author of Visionary Leadership, Getting Change Right, and Getting Innovation Right. In this fourth of a four-part conversation with Seth, we explore the breadth of the ways that story impacts our lives to create the future and the ways we'd like to be able to use story to create a world that we want to live in. So let's get to it.
Before you ask me another question, I want to turn the tables on you a little bit.
Okay.
So you've been in the field of story for a long time, at least as long as I've known you, and longer than that, actually. Why now? Why this book? I mean, this book goes beyond all the other books in the marketplace. And I mean that genuinely. I'm very excited about this book. I'm eager to give it to my clients. Mm-hmm. I'm eager to share it with my friends. Where is this book coming from for you now?
Well, it really is interesting. And at this stage of my life, I wasn't sure I had another book in me. I remember seeing when I was in graduate school, a little cartoon on one of the professor's doors. It's, someone was like vomiting up a book and says, everyone's got at least one of them in them, I wasn't sure. And was having a conversation with my partner, Scott Livengood, one evening over dinner. And I suddenly had a vision of of kind of the breadth of the ways story touches every facet of our existence. And, there are lots of great books out there on stories. Steve Denning has written a couple good ones. A lot of your writing is about that. And they're all, but they're often very focused on a very narrow issue or a narrow facet of story. And I suddenly had a vision of story as being this sort of, it's almost like the unified field theory. It's the kind of concept that can explain a lot of things and can weave together all the different dimensions of our life that often seem like they live in their own separate domains. So, and the more I started researching the idea, and the more I started reading and kind of adding to my knowledge, and seeing what people were thinking about, and the kinds of kind of more rigorous scientific studies that were being done around the brain, I got excited about it. It suddenly went, oh my gosh, our brains are wired for this stuff. And it's no mistake that we've been gathering around fires for a few 100,000 years or more, or, however long humans have been around, and telling stories, and probably our evolution was impacted by the telling of stories, and stories have been impacted by the way our brains are wired. And so it's so intricately interwoven. There's no way to even begin to separate the two. So that's what got me excited about the idea. And, what happened was the book was, I think the first draft was over 500 pages long. I had to start paring back. I was like, and I still have, there's more stuff I could still add now. So, writing is rewriting, and then distilling and trying to get to what is the heart of these seven powers. And, and the first one is really about transporting us to another place and time. And stories so incredibly do that, powerfully do that. And but I saw it affects our communication, it affects our quest for meaning, which you've been talking about. It affects the way we can transform difficulties, like disruptions in organizations, but also disruptions in our own life, which sometimes come in the form of illness or accidents. And then looking at how do we bring people together? We're living at a time that's it's an interesting time, probably you could say. And there probably have been other times maybe in our lives. I think the Vietnam era was another time of a tremendous polarization in this country. But there are some opportunities in this is to look at how do we bring people together. We know stories can powerfully pull people apart, and there's lots of evidence for that. So how do we develop the technology of story in a way that would allow us to become very, very good at being able to sit down with someone who has a whole different view of the world and be able to have an authentic conversation with them and walk away friends, you know. And I'm practicing that a lot with my. I've got a few people in my life where we're emailing back and forth in a very respectful way, but we see our worlds very differently, and we've both committed to being respectful and listening to the other and being willing to entertain their point of view, to see it through their eyes. So, and then the last piece, which is some of what we've been talking about, is envisioning the future. How do we begin to create the future we want in this world? Um, Instead of just sort of like having the future happen to us, what can we do to really impact and create a future in this country and in this world uh, that we'll feel proud about and that will ensure that our generations for years to come will be here and will be able to enjoy this beautiful planet. So that's and you know that I'm just getting ready to hit 70, which is hard to believe. and uh, but some of it has to do with legacy, which I think is kind of a developmental thing for all of us. Is that when we get to this point in our life, we start asking the question, what has it meant, and can I leave something of value behind that would make a difference? So I'm hoping that this work, this book, and the work that kind of evolves out of it and around it does that. So,
Well, congratulations. It's a wonderful book.
well, thanks for asking for that, and it's been fun sharing some of it with you as I've been in the development phases. Well, I've got two questions I want to ask you as we wrap up.
Okay.
So the first is here we are at it's a new year, and we're getting ready to have a new president. We're getting ready to really forge perhaps a new future for us. How do you see the role of story playing in the future of this country in the midst of all of these changes?
Well, I think that the two-party system is completely under threat right now, and it's being transformed as we speak. You have on the one side a group that has got everyone from Bernie Sanders to John McCain's ex-speechwriter. On the other side, you have three groups that have kind of been unbundled. It's hard to imagine that they're going to be able to sustain momentum as a counter to the first party. That is a radical transformation for our country. Every other time that we've gone through a party restructuring, it has been a new season for the country. And I think that that's where we are. So I think the country's at an inflection point. And I think that a lot of people only see stories of destruction in the future. I think that's one of the incoming president's big challenges, is how to help them see stories of unification and to see that America's greatest time is ahead of us and not behind us. And so we need someone who's capable of telling that story. And in my mind, he is, and he has been. And I feel very fortunate that we have someone like that. I think that it's obviously not just up to him, that this is a story that is going to have to catch and go viral, and millions of people are going to have to see themselves in some version of this story and have a version of it that they can tell to their friends and family. So I think story has a very significant role to play. And I think that people who understand the power of narrative will use it for constructive purposes in the years ahead, the couple of years ahead that are where we're going through this inflection point. I think that story intelligence is becoming to be known in a large part because of work that people like you have done over the last 2 or 3 decades. It's ready to emerge, and your book is right on time in that regard.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So you asked me 2 questions. That was
Yeah,
one.
I got one last question for you.
Yeah. Okay.
So here you are at this point in your story.
Yeah.
What's the future of the Seth Kahan story? How do you see your story evolving in your work? And what are your aspirations for the coming years for yourself?
Well, I think it's a time of integration for me. So I'm about 10 years behind you. I'm 61 right now. And I have really imagined, who knows if the truth will bear this out, but I have really imagined that my work in the world, my intentionality to contribute to society is really over the next 10 years or so. And then I'm imagining a different role for myself after that, kind of more like the Indian tradition of, turning away from the world and going to more spiritual things. So I think that it's my time to integrate all of the different activities I've been involved in, everything from experimental theater to the World Bank, right? To bring it all together, from adopting a child to raising a child, two children, my relationships, my love for racial equity and social justice, my desire to help CEOs make large contributions to society. It's all going to get mushed together, and I welcome that, as an opportunity. At this point, I feel like everything I've ever experienced is fair game to draw on to help contribute to the world. And so I see it as a time of integration, the next 10 years, and also a time of, like you were saying, legacy, a time of bundling my knowledge, my wisdom, and making it and putting it in some kind of a package so that it can exceed my lifetime, which is something I look forward to.
Well, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation with you because I think it's going to be an ongoing one between the two of us. And I think it's going to be an exciting one. So thank you for being on Explorations with me today and sharing a little of your life and your experience with our audience.
Thanks for asking me, Rick. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks so much.